guys, how you doing? Today, I got something special for you. Well, it's kind of like something I've already done. However, this one's going to be a lot better. We're going to go ahead and hit you with an updated guide to rating as a Warlock. All right. So about a year ago, I think 11 months ago, I made a video like this. This was before launch. This was well before launch. This was on from private server data, and a lot of stuff has changed since then, enough that warranted a video. I get confusing questions all the time asking if this so-and-so is still correct. So if you play a Warlock, if you're watching this right now and you've been playing a Warlock, then you already know these changes probably, and you'll probably still learn something from here. If you're new to Warlock, this is the best thing you could ever watch in your life, and it's nothing you need to worry about. I'm going to disconnect the other one from my channel, so there's not going to be any confusion as well. And let's just get straight into it. I'm going to cover everything that has to do with rating, okay? Including the agenda right now, which will tell you everything that we're covering. So we're going to go over first is the Warlock Discord, and then some Warlock Strengths, some weaknesses, leveling. I'm not going to go big into leveling. I do have some slides just showing you some quick builds. I do have leveling guides. Anything that I've made guide-wise will be linked above it when we get to the slide, okay? The Alliance Races, the Horde Races, some curses, which you should be using, some spells, all the ones you'll be using and not using ever need to use, ones you can not take off your bars, I'll explain to you. We have demons, which, you know, we got demons. Consumables, a lot of them. Enchants, a lot of them. Stat Prio and Breakdown. And then we'll move on to gearing. PvP gear that you can use for PvE, which is very important. Tier sets, which are ultra important as well. Professions, Warlocks role and raid, some Affliction builds, some Demonology builds, and some Destruction builds. These are the builds for raiding, right? So each one has like 1 or 2 different builds we'll go into when we get there. And coming up to clear it up, we're going to do some macros and add-ons. And then lastly will be some tips and tricks. Okay, guys? So let's just, this is going to be a longer video. Let's just get straight into it, guys. Let's just get right into it. All right, brothers? Well, first off, before we begin, I'd like to invite you to the official Warlock Discord server, okay? This server is the place to go for any Warlock, whether you're new to Warlocks or you're experienced. There's information for literally everyone in here. If you have any questions at all regarding anything about Warlocks, from PvE, PvP, leveling, theory crafting, hardcore raiding, casual raiding, fucking anything, gold farming, anything, please don't hesitate to head to the Discord and ask, okay? Click the blue link above if you're reading this. Oh yeah, I guess. So I do have script here, guys. It's because this slides presentation will be linked in the description and on Reddit and stuff like that. These slides are made to be read without me having to hear my voice. So if you just heard me say that and you hate me, you can shut me up and just go ahead and read the slides instead. All right, peace. All right, guys, let's go on the Warlock Strengths, man. I know plenty of you guys know the Warlock Strengths, man. We're one of the best, if not one of the, okay, I guess I can't say the best, but I'll say one of the best DPS classes in the game. As it gets towards the end of the game, we get even better and better. I would say that we're top 3 right now, right next to Hunters and Mages. You are pretty much top 3 as a Warlock almost the whole game. It gets a little dicey towards the end with the melee, but you'll still be pumping pretty hard, right? So we have a lot of strengths to go over some of them, including high single target damage. We have some of the highest single target damage. I would put maybe, I mean, Hunters are always going to kind of beat us to single target damage, and then I'd probably slot Warlocks second, with Mages a third, and only third because, you know, in the beginning of the game, Warlocks outpump them, but then Mages are outpumping us now, and then T6, Sunwell, Warlocks will be back on top. I would say if you're a Warlock, you can look forward to super industrial high single target damage, and including not just that, but the best part about this that makes us stand out more than like the Hunters, right, is not only that, but we also have extremely good AoE damage. We have bonkers AoE damage, some of the best in the game, and that's kind of what makes it so much better, makes us better than Hunters, right? Because we don't just have high single target damage. We get to carry the single target damage and the AoE damage, okay? Another thing that we have is just very, 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 very appeasing to Warlocks and many people is the variety and specs. We have we have so much different specs that we can play, and the best part is it's not like, oh, we need to play Arcane or we need to play, you know, Beast Mastery. We can literally justifiably play a couple, 2 or 3 different builds in Destro and still be up there. 2 builds, you know, 1 or 2 builds in Demo and still be up there. You know, and of course Affliction is going to carry up the rear, but it's okay because they can pump still, okay? So you get a lot of variety in specs. It's not, I mean, the meme between Shadow Bolt spamming, there's more than just Shadow Bolt. You can do so much more than that. You can Shadow Bolt spam if you want, but there's other specs that you can go as well, and we'll get into it a little bit later. Another strength that you never go because something called life tap, you already know what it is. You shouldn't virtually never go right? Next up is limited competition on gear due to craftables starting out. So starting out early game, there is almost no competition, nothing you need to worry about. The competition doesn't really get heavy until T6. T5, you can argue it kind of does with chests and stuff, but it's nothing too crazy. They also have insane self heals. They have Siphon Life, we have Hellstones, we have Death Coil, we have Drain Life. Not only that, but we have Fell Armor, which is on us 24/7. And what Fell Armor does is it gives us damage, but it also makes us take increased healing, so it also helps a lot too. We're also pretty easy to heal. Toss us a freaking renew or a rejuvenate bubble, and we'll go on about our ways. All right. Some other strengths is that we are very, very tanky in the Destro and Demo build. This is a very, very good for if you look at raid leaders' perspectives. They know that we are tanky. We can just, like I just said, just give us, we have insane heals. Give us a renew. We're tanky. We'll live, right? Warlocks can also tank 4 raid bosses. There's 4 raid bosses that you need something other than a tank to do. You need a range. You know, I have a slide for that later. You can have Warlocks tank them. You have Hellstones, different ranks of Hellstones, which is very important. You have, you know, 1 rank, 2 ranks, 0 ranks. That means you have Hellstones that obviously heal you for more damage. Those should be spread out in your raids. These are huge. These are free potions. I think there's more than a potion too, and they can crit. It's crazy. Next is Soul Stones, which acts as a battle res. You already know how important that is in a raiding scenario. The most important thing about Warlocks is the curses, probably, besides the damage, is the curses. They have so many curses, and the utility that just brings to the table that just helps the raid out drastically. And of course, our CC with Fear and Banish is absurd. It gets used all the time in raid. And then lastly, the pets. From Affliction and Demo, you run pets. The main spec, you kind of don't run a pet, but you do as Affliction and Demo. The pets have major utility. Each one has its own. We'll get into it when we get to that slide, man. That's the strengths. Let's go over the weaknesses. We don't have that many of them, but even Achilles had a weakness, right? All right, I guess we do have some crap. The number one thing that, you know, subjectively speaking, is severe threat issues, guys. We have insane threat problems, right? Yes, there's ways to combat that. And you guys know, if you're watching this, you know what you're doing. You know that there's ways to combat that. There's also ways that you kind of can't, and you're kind of screwed sometimes. And that's something that a Warlock has to worry about. There's sometimes when you're casting and you're not going to be able to, you know, you open up and you start Shadow Bolts and you crit the next 4 Shadow Bolts you get. And you're threat capped. There's sometimes when I have to wand. There's sometimes I have to put up dots. Or sometimes I have to do something to stop pumping. And that's going to happen. Expect it. You know, no big deal. Next up, Shadow Dasher needs 4+ locks to maximize DPS with ISB, and Fire Dasher requires a Fire Mage to maximize DPS. However, not mandatory for both those. You're still able to pump. It's just, you know, it's not necessary, but I would say damn near necessary. I wouldn't say that's a weakness per se, considering Shadow Dasher also needs a Shadow Priest, but you typically always have a Shadow Priest in the raid, and you typically will have 3 or 4 Warlocks, so that's not too crazy. The Fire Dasher side of things, as you guys have realized, if you play a Warlock, is the hard one. Many of us, me included, have pretty much never been able to run Fire Dasher. We've ran a couple weeks as it, but main Fire Dasher because we aren't, you know, mages are just kind of greedy. They want to be Arcane, and I don't blame them, because if I was a mage, I would be Arcane Frost too. But yeah, it's like, you know, still the Fire Dasher part is probably a big weakness. That sucks because it's the best spec in the game, and it just pumps so hard, but you have to have a Fire Mage for it. Next weakness is probably one of the big ones is no movement speed. This is not retail where you get Burning Rush. You just have your good old Escalades, Lamborghinis, you know what I mean? You're just running everywhere. All right. They're pretty expensive to start gearing. While it was a strength that, and the next one, it kind of couples with heavy competition tier 6. It was a strength that you didn't have a heavy competition under tier 6, which is good. But to counteract that, the reason you don't have heavy competition is because you are heavy profession starting out, which is very expensive to start. And of course, soul shards, which is probably the number one complaint that you'll get from everybody in the world. I think I would say it's a weakness, although I'll also say that it takes 10 minutes to get 82 shards, literally, if you know the shard farming spot. So stupid excuse, but yeah, it is kind of annoying to have to. It's less on farming them and more on inventory space. Am I wrong or right on that? All right, next up, ramp up time for AF is kind of stupid, but at the same time, AF is not the pumper spec. They got to ramp up their dots. They're just all damage over time abilities, bro. They're putting up 3-4 dots at a time and then pumping Shadow Bolts. It'd be kind of boring to some. And then also, to counteract that, certain specs are really boring. Destro's Shadow Bolt spam. One of the main specs is just literally spamming Shadow Bolt. And to bounce off that, the other specs that you would use instead of that still spam Shadow Bolt. You're putting up a dot and you're spamming Shadow Bolt. Or your Fire Dasher and you're putting up a dot and you're spamming Incinerate. It's a boring spec. They're boring, okay? It's not boring if you look at it in the terms of they can crit all the times and you're pumping super hard, you know, but it can be pretty boring to people. Another thing is you need to cast as much as possible. I don't know how this is with other classes. I fucking hope that it's important with other classes. That is very important to us, especially because of live tap. We'll get into it a little bit more down the road. All right, guys, we're going to go over to leveling real quick. I'm not going to go super into detail with leveling because there's leveling guides posted for each of these specs. I will literally point above right now and do it. This is going to be the Felguard build. The first one, this is a very, very strong leveling build. You can pull one at a time or mass pull with the Felguard. He does massive damage, cleaves, charges, virtually never goes yada, yada, yada. It means it's insane. You don't go he doesn't go because of mana feed. You don't go because of Imp Drain Soul and a bunch of other things that happen. You have such less downtime. The only downtime you have is summoning a new pet or healing him. That's about it. As for the rest of your points, this is a 60 talent build. Just go ahead and put him down here. I like suppression for some more hit. You got some more damage. You know, you got Nightfall, so on and so forth. Next up is going to be the Affliction build. This is if you don't want to run a pet and you want to run an Affliction build. This is my favorite build, actually. This is the Deep Affliction build. This is a very solid leveling build, still chosen by many Warlocks in TBC, and in my opinion, is one of the most fun leveling specs. With this build, you have the option to destroy mobs one at a time by simply dotting them up, or you can pull million things. You can pull 4 things around you and just dot them up and survive, right? And then you have an oh shit button in Howl of Terror, and then you keep on pumping, all right? You can pull anything around you. and play more of a rotten dot playstyle with very minimal downtime due to self-healing talents like Siphon Life, Soul Siphon, and stuff like that, all right? Pair that with many dots that you have, which are extremely strong thanks to talents like Contagion, Improved Agony, improved and Empowered Corruption, and don't forget all the beautiful power of Unstable Affliction and your future points that can be put in the Demonology to further improve your damage and survivability. This build is perfect for anyone planning to do a majority of their level questing. This build is very bad in dungeons since the mobs die too fast, you know what I mean? I will say that's kind of too late to go back and do it, but I can do it anyway. This is a very good build for dungeons. This is like what I would run for dungeons if I was solely dungeoning. Back to where we were. All right, the last one will be Soul Link, SLSL. This is a version of the popular SLSL, meaning Soul Link Siphon Life build. This is not really suggested to everybody, but it is very viable only if you are playing on a PvP server and you know, due to how strong Soul Link and Siphon Life are, right? The synergy is it's unparalleled. Among other talent choices that make you very tanky as well. So if you're on a PvP server, I just like to run this build. You have 8 flex points in this build. The base of this build needs Soul Link and Siphon Life. After that, you can go down Shadow Mastery for more damage, or you can go in the Demo for more survivability, whatever fits your playstyle, okay? This is viable on PvE servers as well. However, with no PvP to worry about, it's suggested that you run the Felguard build as it's much more damage. All right, let's go on to the cool stuff. Races. All right, Alliance Races first. Talking about those cute, gorgeous.
I'm going to talk like this, because this is what I think gnomes sound like, and I hate them. Gnome! They have Escape Artists, which is pretty cool. Niche uses in raid, mainly a PvP ability, although I will say, Lady Vag, you can definitely get out of roots with this. Lastly, Expansive Mind increases your intellect by 5%. Not hugely impactful, but gives you about a little bit less than 6 crit rating at 400 int. You know what I mean? Not bad.
I hate gnomes if you can't tell. On to the humans. Their perception dramatically increases stealth detection for 20 seconds. This is a specific but powerful use against stealth classes in PvP only. Diplomacy reduces grind times and allows you to get some strong rep items sooner, like the Hydro Rep Ring. You get that 10%, you know, I would say 10% faster than everybody, but you get it. And lastly is the Human Spirit. Spirit is our worst stat, so there's no real use to this beyond leveling. You might get 2 or 3 Spirit from Improved Divine Spirit. That's about it. Next up, we got some Zugs. We got the Hordes, okay? We got the Undead. Starting with the best race in the world, Undead. World of Forsaken. You already know what it does. It's typically for PvP, however, it has some it can remove some CCs, some niche CCs in raids, okay? Cannibalize, which is good for leveling and farming. It has some niche uses in PvP. You know what it does. It heals you. Use it when you need health, I guess. You know, it's Cannibalize. What do you expect?
Zug Loktar Orc Hardness. Chance to resist stun effects by 15%, only useful in PvP. Blood Fury, which is the most broken talent in the game and the reason why you should be an orc. 143 spell power for 15 seconds on a 2-minute cooldown. This is insanely good and synergizes very well with all of your CDs. And lastly, your demons deal 5% more damage. Solid for Demonology and Affliction.
And let's not forget the pretty boys. The Blood Elves. Last time I forgot to put these in the guide and everybody flamed me, so here you go. Arcane Torrent silences all your enemies. This is very helpful. The silence can be very helpful, but note that you need to be in melee range and it's a 2-minute cooldown. This is not a reason to run Warlock. Don't run Warlock thinking, oh yeah, I should run Warlock so I can Arcane Torrent and raid. Get out of here. Next is Magical Resistances. It increases your magical resistance by 5. This is helpful as it provides slight resistance, although it's nothing major. Mana Tap, which is literal hot garbage, doo-doo water, worthlessness in PvE. No clue why this is even in the game. And then Arcane Affinity. Enchanting skill increased by 10 speaks for itself. All right, guys. Let's get to some curses, yeah? The whole point we're going to raid, I think, right? Yeah, Curse of Elements. You know what this does, right? Boost your Arcane Fire, Frost, Shadow damage by 10%. This is elements and shadows combined. This is your bread and butter. Always keep it up. If a raid has an Affliction lock, they will be using this because they have a talent called Malediction, which buffs this by another 3%. Your raid leader will usually tell you what curse you guys are. These are the 2 curses that should be up on the bosses pretty much 100% of the time. Curse of Reck, you already know what it does. Increases the melee attack by 35, but reduces their armor by 800. This is huge for anything melee. This is a twin to elements. Always keep this up unless there's a specific reason not to, such as you need a fear mob or there's tank damage concerns, okay? I will say something about Curse of Reck, though. I want to explain something about Curse of Reck that I feel like people do know about, but they don't do, and that is notice how it says cursed enemies will not flee or will ignore fear and horror effects. This means, you know how when you're out in the world leveling and you almost kill a mob and he runs away, like if you Curse of Reck that mob, he'll stop running away. That means if I'm to fear a target, if I fear a target, right, and then I put up a Curse of Reck on that target, it stops, it cancels the fear. I have a little clip here to show you guys about it too, so you can kind of see what I mean. Hey guys, I'm gonna show you how Curse of Reck works real quick. Okay, so notice how I fear. Watch how I fear this guy. Now what Curse of Reck does is it stops them from running, which means, look at that. They stop running because I put it on them. Now you run over here. Now as soon as you override the Curse of Reck, it will then start running away again. Curse of Reck stops it. Override it. Stops it. It's really handy when it gets far away. Look, chase me, chase me. It overrides it. Fear ran out. You see what I mean, guys? I don't got to keep going. You already know what I'm talking about, right? Boom. Huge fear. He resisted. Cool. On camera. Huge resist. Huge fear. Huge fear. Oh my god, he's going to pull mobs. Now he's not going to pull mobs. Why? Because I Curse of Recked him. All right. So be careful with that. You can use this to get out of every situation in the world. It helps so much all the time. So yeah, hope it helps you guys. All right, I hope that made sense, guys. On to the next one, the Curse of Doom. Oh my gosh, is this not the power of a Warlock? So what Curse of Doom does is it puts a debuff. Let's call it a ticking time bomb, rather. Puts a ticking time bomb on the boss, which after 60 seconds, 1 minute, blows up and does way more than 4,200 damage. Just shit ton of damage, okay? This is the highest DPS curse. Use this when it's not on cooldown, okay? This puts itself on cooldown for 16 seconds, so you can only have one up. If, say, this blows up, and the boss only has 45 seconds left till he's dead, guess what? Boom! You're going to use Curse of Agony. Use this when Doom's on cooldown, or if you're multi-targeting, or if you have to move. For example, on Alar, there's birds everywhere in phase 2 and Alar. Say you have to move for whatever reason, and Alar's doing Dive Bomb. You can Agony and add. Or KT, or Vash. Also with Doom, be careful with threat resets on bosses like Hydros, Leotheris. There's many bosses in the game, and there's many more to come, by the way. But make sure that you are just very careful with this. Pay attention to the mechanics. Know that on Hydros, you can't Doom right away. Why? Because you're going to pull aggro during the transmission, or the transmission. During the transition. You know what I mean? Lastly, some other curses that are very important, but nobody really talks about, right? Curse of Tongues. We know why this is a big deal. It increases the cast time of spells by 60%. Now, what we don't know is why it does that. Forces a target to speak in demonic. That is so dope. That's why. I never do that. That's cool. Anyway, niche uses, but it does get used in raid and on some trash packs and a few bosses. Mount Hydro Trash will be used a lot. Fathom Lord, SCC, not Fathom Lord itself, but the Siren Priest person, Illidari Council, ROS, to name a few. There's gonna be a lot of times that you use these, okay? We got our Warlock over here conjuring up a Curse of Exhaustion. This is pretty much, besides needing to be Affliction to use it, worthless in a raiding scenario. You can use it for like Vash. There's a couple times you can niche use it, but you shouldn't. The thing is, you can get value out of this in raid, but all of those situations that you would be using this, you could have had a better class do it. And lastly is Curse of Weakness. This is just limited to no use in a raiding scenario due to warriors and druids having Demo Shout, Demo Roar, which is improved by their talents. I use it in 5-mans very occasionally. All right, guys, we're gonna go over spells. So I'm gonna be listing pretty much every spell that means something to us. And yeah, if you already know the spell, skip past this with the timestamps. Otherwise, buckle in. First up, Shadow Bolt. This is your main spell that you'll be spamming unless you're a Fire Dash show. If Affliction, use this as your filler. Be careful, Shadow Bolt. This is a very heavy threat intensive ability. If you open up with the Shadow Bolt and you crit 2 or 3 of them, you're probably going to pull aggro, so just be careful. Next up, Corruption. This is a damage over time, aka a dot. If Affliction, have 100% uptime. Otherwise, use this only if you want to slow roll threat on pull. That means, you know, we're about to pull the boss. I've noticed that I usually have threat issues, so I'm going to actually open with the Corruption and then I'll start spamming Shadow Bolts. Immolate does some initial damage, and then the remainder of it is left over as a dot. Use this if you're spec'd into Imp, Emo, and Emberstorm, or if there's a Fire Mage in your raid. Also can help slow roll threat on pull T6 plus like Corruption does. Shadowburn, Destro spell only. Use if you cannot finish a Shadow Bolt, or if you are moving and you do not need to life tap. Okay, this is one of those things where I said you want to always be casting. If a boss mechanic makes me move, my first instinct is to life tap if I need mana, and if not, Shadowburn. Unstable Affliction, this is a big damage over time ability. It's an Affliction spell only, 100% uptime through all encounters if spec'd. Seed of Corruption, this is your primary and pretty much only AoE ability that you'll use. This is massive damage. Just make sure your tank has a lot of aggro. Wait even longer if it's not a paladin. Procs off of damage done or death to target after you apply Seed of Corruption. Note that Seed of Corruption is also bugged for Warlocks currently. It is severely bugged for Warlocks right now. I'm just doing a few things that make it bugged out. I'm working on trying to get it fixed. I hope Blizzard fixed it, but you know, I can only do so much. Except with Siphon Life, this is a dot, Affliction spell only. Keep this up when there is healing needed or ISB is up on the boss. Drain Life, use frequently to keep yourself alive. Do not depend on healers. If you're low, drain for a bit. Oh my god, I can't stress this. I see so many Warlocks die because they don't drain life. Like, you guys have to know that we're tanky and we have a lot of self heals, right? So healers are going to heal us last. I heal as well. I heal Warlocks last. I'll give them a renew or something, but you heal them last, right? So just kind of know that, go into it. Don't be for the drain life. Searing Pain, use only if you're Warlock tanking, since this generates super high threat. Excellent spell for low HP targets like Curator Adds and KJ Orbs. Hellfire, use to stack your DMF trinket pre-pool. Keep your DMF stacks at 10 mid-fight when you can't reach the boss, or to fish for procs right before pool. So what this is a trinket, is a Dark Mood Fair trinket called Crusade that stacks to 10. It gives you 80. It gives you 8 spell power per stack, up to 10 stacks, right? TLDR on private servers, we could stack it with Hellfire, because you have to do damage to make it stack. However, I don't think it's going to work. There's comments saying it didn't work in 2007, so I'm not sure about that. That's why there's an asterisk next to it. Conflagration, also from now on known as Conflag, used only if you need to move and don't need to life tap. This is also only if you're spec'd into it. You must have immolate up to use it, and it consumes that immolate charge. Okay, do not use this on cooldown. If you're the spec, if you are the baller spec that runs MP mode, ES, and Conflag, fucking please don't use this on cooldown. I see too many people do it. Only use it if you're moving, and also if you just put up an immolate and then you're moving, don't use it, bro. If you got 12 seconds on your immolate, don't. You know what? Put an immolate up. Keep pumping. If a boss mechanic makes you move, and I do not need a life tap, and the immolate has 2-3 seconds left, conflag it. Incinerate, spam instead of Shadow Bolt if you're a fire destro, or locked out of your magic or locked out of your shadow spells. Simple enough. This does more damage if immolate is on the target. Next one is Soulfire. This is a slow cast and costs a soul shard to cast a spell. Typically never used unless you're a fire destro, and you can cast it pre-pull and have faith that you won't rip off the tank. Rain of Fire can literally be taken off your action bars for PvE content. All right, Dark Pact. This is Affliction spell only. Use it when you would otherwise life tap and when Imp is not casting. Life tap gives you mana in exchange for your health. Use when you need mana, but make sure to not get too low and die. There's a lot of mechanics where you can tap, 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 and also you get multi-shotted or something and you die, right? I suggest keeping a rank 3 on your bars as well, just in case you need mana but can't afford a max rank life tap. Fear. This is used frequently in raids as CC. Curse of Reck will override the fear if one starts to run into another pack, as you guys saw earlier. Howl Terror is another fear. However, it is an AoE fear that's not used too often, except occasionally on trash packs. Really helpful in 5-mans though. Next up is Death Coil, which is one of my favorite abilities. This is an instant cast 3-second Horrify that heals you for the damage dealt. Use this when you need HP and have to move. Can also be used as a form of CC a lot of the times on trash packs. It can interrupt like, you know, channels and casts and stuff. Demon Armor is no longer used. It is replaced by Fell Armor, which, by the way, increases your healing taken by 20% and your spell power by 100. The only armor you'll ever use in raid. You can talent to make this even stronger, called Demonology or whatever it's called. It'll make Fell Armor even stronger. Soul Shatter. This is an amazing ability and one of your favorite things in the world. What this does is it literally cuts your threat in half. By every target around you in 50 yards, all your threat is cut in half. It's your new favorite spell. It's one of the reasons why we pump so hard. Hellstone. This is another potion. Use it when healing is focused on other people. Ritual of Souls. This is your a soul wall. Put the soul wall down. Raid members can click this for Hellstone. It has 10 Hellstones in it. So you click this, 2 other people click it. A green soul wall comes down. It lasts 5 minutes. It spits out 10 Hellstones. Ritual of Summoning is the same thing as this, except for it summons people. Next up is Feldom. Reduces summon time for your next demon by 5.5 seconds and the mana cost by 50%. This is very useful for Demonology if your pet dies, but also for Destro, you actually have Feldom as well, okay? So it's a very big deal. If your pet dies, you pick it up. If you are Destro and you die and you get battle res, you can just instantly Feldom another pet out instead of having to wait the whole, 5.56 seconds for it, okay? Also, as Fire Destro, when you're switching between single target and AoE, you'll use Feldom. Lastly, Amplify Curse. This is Affliction only. Increases the base damage of Agony or Doom by 50% or the Slow of Exhaustion Curse by 20%. Last page of spells is Shadow Fury. This is Destro only. This is AoE damage plus a stun for 2 seconds. 20-second CD. Used mainly for Destro Nightfall build or Dungeon Cleaving. Next up is Enslaved Demon. There are a few demons that can be mind controlled in a raid. Also used to keep control of the Infernal you summon with Inferno and Hydral and the Fellhound and Hiking Mulgar and Gruul's Lair and a couple other trash packs. Soul Link. This is Demonology only. This transfers 20% of the damage taken and passes it to your demon. It also increases the damage you and your pet deal by 5%. Also makes you extremely tanky. Drain Soul only used for shards. Use only rank 1 since you only need to use it for shards. Do not include this in your rotation ever. Drain Mana. Never use in PvE. Banish. This is just like your Fear. This is one of your primary CCs you use in raid. Banishing a demon or elemental will happen all the time. Make sure you slot rank 1 and 2 and you switch between the two frequently. Health Funnel. Heals pet at the cost of your own health. Use his AF and Demo to keep demons alive if you're not getting healed. Detect Invisibility allows you to see invisible mobs, rarely used. Shadow Ward, absorb shadow damage, great to use while farming mobs that do shadow damage or anything that's damage in raid. Anything that does shadow damage, I almost use this on cooldown. Alright, Kilrog summons an item you control, useful for safely pulling certain packs or building AoE threat for a paladin. You life tap and he heals while the mobs run to you, thus he would get the aggro. Demonic Sacrifice is a demo talent, but only used if you are Destro, either Fire or Shadow. If farming as Destro, you can sack the Voidwalker for sustain. Lastly, create Firestone. This conjures a plus 30 fire damage wand, not used much past T5. We made it past the spells, guys. Next on to the cool parts, the demons. This sexy imp right here. Used only if Affliction, or if you're Fire Destroyer, you demonic sacrifice it. Void Walker. Emergency sack for shield. Shield also helps provide pushback. Okay, Succubus, one of their main abilities right here, unless you're Fire Destro. If Shadow Destro, you demonic sacrifice your Succubus, right? Okay, for 50% shadow damage. You also use her as Demonology for the MD Ruin build, and also as Fire Destro, or we are AoEing under AoE cap, you'll sacrifice her. Felhunter, used when tanking Illidan and Black Temple and Twins and Sunwell Plateau, also can be used as emergency spell lock. And then lastly, the demon is Felguard, only used if you're running Felguard Demonology build. Consumables, we got a lot of them, guys. Flask of Pure Death, 80 spell power for 2 hours. Your main flask, use it all the time. Flask of Supreme Power, 70 spell power for 2 hours. The cheaper flask, typically used for raids on Super Farm, or if you're just a cheap bastard. Brilliant Wizard Oil, 36 spell power and 14 crit rating. The oil you will use to coat your weapons. Superior Wizard Oil, Superior Wizard Oil. This is 42 spell power. Another option for oils, typically only use Affliction, even more specifically only if running the unstable Affliction build. Destro Potions, Destruction Potions, 2% spell crit and 120 spell power for 15 seconds. One of your main potions, use this on cooldown with your other cooldowns when you do not need to use a mana potion. Giver's Bits, increase for pet strength, spirit by 20, used by Demo for killing, or used by Demo for buffing pets, stacks with scrolls. Dark Runes and Demonic Runes. They're the same thing. They do the same amount of health and everything, except for the Dark Runes are BOE. Demonic Runes are BOP, and you got to farm them. Dark Runes BOE restores mana at the cost of your health. Nice to have in raids, so you don't have to life tap. This is not on GCD. This is very good for seeding and stuff like that. Poached Bluefish, 23 spell power and 20 spirit, your food buff. Blackened Basilisk, exact same food buff, but a different food. And there's also another one called Crunchy Serpent that I didn't put in here. I forgot, but it's the exact same thing again. What I would suggest is looking up all of those on auction house because they are all always priced different. Scrolls can be used for rare occasions of not having a major Shadow Priest in your raid. You have Strength, Agi Scrolls can be used on your Felguard or your Succubus. You have Spirit Scrolls for yourself, and Stam Scrolls if you don't have it. Flame Caps increase your fire damage by 80 for 1 minute. 3 minute CDs shares CDs with Dark and Demonic Runes. This is a powerful consumable for Fire Destro only. Super Mana Potions. This is your only other main potion. Use situationally if you need mana and if there is limited movement on the fight. Not a lot of time to tap. Super Healing Potion. This is your healing potion. Use this when when you need healing. Next, Reaction Potion. This is not used ever except for during Kale Thaws when you get the toy on you. And last thing, Invisibility Potion. This is used for skips. I can't tell you guys when to skip, but if you do skip, that's what you're going to use. Big thing on this, not lesser Invisibility Potions, by the way. Oh, they have to be Invisibility Potions to do the skips. You can't use lessers. All right, let's talk about some gems, man. First off is the meta gem, Chaotic Skyfire Diamond. This is the only gem you're going to use the entire game for your meta. Don't worry about anything else. So how gems work is you have I guess there's different releases for gems. You have the gems out, they're out right now before T6. Then you have some gems that are out after T6. And then you actually have some gems like these haste gems that even come out a little bit after that. So just to keep it easy, right now we don't have any of these right here. So I'm going to hide them. Okay. This is where we're at. If you're watching this afterwards, then you'll see it. But right now, for example, we have a meta gem in here. You need to connect 2 blues, which are really easy to get because you have these glowing night sides to do that. And then you put 8 hit if you need 8 hit. In the beginning of the game, you need 8 hit. And then you slowly go down to here. As you lose hit, you will slowly transfer into Veiled Nobles. As you lose more hit off your gear, I remove all the hit off my gear first. And then after all my hit is off my gear and I then need to replace my gems, I'm moving right into the Rune of Living, okay? Now, what happens with, besides the haste ones, what happens with T6 is it's literal upgrades. Literal direct upgrade. Look at these. These are direct upgrades. These are literally 8 hit, 10 hit. You see what I mean? 9, 12. So just upgrade to what you need. So you have one is 5 hit, 6 spell damage, 4 hit. You see what I mean? They just turn into each other. And down the road, you have the haste ones come up. Then this will replace your glowing night's eye. You have the haste ones replacing everything, Okay, enchants. Okay, so for head enchant, you're going to use the Glyph of Power, which is Shatar Revered. This is 22 spell damage and 14 hit rating. There's nothing else you need to use besides that. Cloak, there's nothing you need to use besides this. There's a fire res cloak if you're fire tanking, but I wouldn't worry about it. This just 2% threat on all your shit. Mandatory. Shoulder enchants a little spicy. You have 3 to choose from. You have Scryers, Alders, and Power to Scourges from Nax. Okay. Sapphire Iron to be specific, sorry. The staff enchant is BiS, but by a small margin and less affliction. In which case Alder is BiS. Alder is slightly better than Scryers as well. However, I know most of us are Scryers for blood gem. Bracers. Spell power is the only thing you need to put on them. Don't worry about anything. 15 spell power. Just put them on there and pump. Pants. Only one you should put on there is Runic Spell Thread. Do not fucking do the Mystic Spell Thread. No one cares about Mystic Spell Thread, okay? That's cheap. Don't be that cheap. Unless they're like an alt or something, but... Onto the boots. This is the boots. This only one that I put in my boots is the boar speed. This gives you a little bit of stamina and some speed. And then the weapon is you have major spell power, you have soul frost, and you have sunfire. Major spell power is just a budget enchant. And also, I ran major spell power for a while. That was because I was going back and forth between frost and fire. But if you're not running back and forth from frost and fire, then just pick up soul frost. If you're okay, to put it simply, put up sunfire if you're fire, Destro. Other than that, put up soul frost. Gloves. You have two different gloves. You have major spell power and spell strike. So use spell strike early for the hit, and then after that, you want to swap to major spell power pretty much right away, right? So going to T5, you should already have the major spell power on. And then the chest, only chest enchant worth mentioning for PvE, 6 the stats. Speaking of stats, let's get some stats breakdown, huh? Priority. The most important stat for all 3 specs is hit. You want to get hit cap ASAP. 202 hit rating is a spell hit cap. 164 if you have an LA Shaman in your group, and 152 if you have an LA Shaman and a Draenei due to their racial called Inspiration in your group. After hit cap is achieved, start stockpiling spell power. Haste comes into play T6, but for now, don't worry about that. So for now, before T6, your priority is hit, spell power, and then crit. After T6, it's going to be hit, haste, spell power, crit. Stat changes. TBC removes the percentage base effects on gear for hit and crit, and instead uses a system of rating. So a certain amount of rating equals 1%. Any caustic gear that had a percentage instead receives an amount of rating that gives that percentage at 60. Example, Nels Tier's 2% spell hit in classic, but it's 16 spell hit rating in TBC. That's 2% spell hit at 60, but only 1.27 hit at 70. And just so you guys know, 1% crit is 22.08 crit rating, 1% haste is 15.76 haste rating, and 1% spell hit is 12.62. And just a side note on Affliction, because they are a little bit different for stats. So before 6% hit, you want to go hit, spell power, haste, and then crit, right? After 6%, you want hit. The hit becomes the same as spell power, which is greater than haste and crit. Okay. After 6% hit and with enough gear to be Ruin, it's hit, haste, spell power, crit, just like a Destro would be. No, if Affliction, just worry about hit cap. Not as hard to achieve since you have suppression, and then just stack as much spell power as you can. Your dots cannot crit, and haste does not benefit your dots, so it does not affect the speed of your ticks, but will lower your GDCD still. Alrighty, next is some PvP gear that you should use while raiding. Yes, I know. Oh my god, PvP gear, whatever am I going to do? Well, the good news is they're usually bracers and necks, which are, not that much honor. This is just honor. That's just you going 1 weekend to get them in honor, okay? Now, Season 2 bracers are BiS right now until you have LR bracers. After that, Season 3 bracers are BiS until you can craft or acquire bracers and nibble top. Season 3 neck will be BiS until you get KT neck. Season 4 neck, if you still don't have KT neck or BT neck. Season 2 weapon is BiS T5, and Season 3 weapon, I think it's BiS T5. I would say BiS or on par because of the hit. I don't want to argue about that, but yeah, that's my subjective. And the Season 3 weapon is BiS before Tempest of Chaos or Zardoom. Tier sets. Get spicy. Our tier sets are probably the dopest looking tier sets in the game, right? Starting with Tier 4. Tier 4 is an amazing looking set. We're already past Tier 4, but I'm going to pay its respect because of that fat ass 2-piece that we love so much, right? Your shadow damage spells have a chance to grant you 143 spell damage. We don't need to talk about it. We already know about it, man. Oh, man. Oh, look how good they look. You love to see it. All right, man. Look at this, bro. It's sad because T5 looks the best, man. We don't even use T5. I mean, you can get some value out of T5. Oh, I guess we should talk about these, huh? So Tier 4, guys. Tier 4 is really good. The 2 set is the best. Increase your shadow damage or fire damage. 4 set, it's all right. 4 set allowed you to, I highly doubt anybody's going to be doing it anymore. But 4 set back when it was live, it allowed you to keep up corruption in your rotation. So it's pretty cool. Let's spice it up a little bit. Tier 5 is the best looking one in the world. It's the most iconic looking thing. It's trash though. So the 4 set is garbage. Goes off base damage. It's trash. It was already researched. The 2 set is really good for Demonology though. Doesn't mean much for anything else. And then Tier 6, look at that. Tier 6, each time your crush run and Immolate deals damage, it heals you. It's garbage. But the 4 set, increase your damage by your Shadow Ball and Incinerate by 6% is absolutely massive. So, you know what I mean? Early game T4, you're looking to get 2 set out of it. T5 doesn't matter unless you're Demo, you get 2 set. And in Tier 6, you want 4 set immediately. Professions. We got a lot of professions here to talk about, man. Starting with the beginning of the game professions, which is Frozen Shadow Weave, Spellfire, Spell Strike. So, professions are a very big deal for Warlocks. They're a ginormous deal for Warlocks. Remember earlier I said early game Warlocks have professions. They don't have gear. You don't have any gear. What's it called? You don't have any competition for gear because you have these. This is a very powerful set of gear that you make depending on, Spellfire is obviously fire spells. So this is if you were your Fire Destro. And then Frozen Shadow Weave is Shadow. So that's only if you're Shadow. And then Spell Strike's a little bit of both if you're both, right? So early game, you're pretty much immediately going to get most of these, right? Only the spell strike set bonus actually requires tailoring, right? So these are actually BOE. These are good starter ones. Obviously, you're going to replace Hood kind of quick for a meta gym. But if you're looking to start the game, like you're starting late and you're looking to put some gear on to make you pump right away, it's going to be this stuff right here, all of this. You can go, if you're, Shadow, pick up all these, pick up these, start looking for raids, and you'll immediately see some damage going up right away, okay? If you're Fire, you're getting these right away as well. Fire, these last a while. To put it in perspective of how long these pieces last, I'm still wearing Spell Strike in the T6. I'm still, you can still wear Frozen Saturday boots, but I've replaced them. And you're still wearing Spellfire robe and gloves for a while. To be honest, you're wearing Spellfire robes, gloves, and belt for a while. And eventually, once you get a robe, you'll replace robe and belt, but you're still wearing gloves. So you kind of get it for a while, you know what I mean? As for the Spell Strike pants, the set bonus is really nice. It's a 2-piece that gives you 92 spell power. The hood was never really worn because the meta gym was actually out. But like I said, if you're catching up, it's not bad to get it. So these are some more powerful items that you can look forward to in the future if you are tailoring. All of these items can act as best in slot depending on your gear setup at the time. So T5 for blasting, T6 for nimbles, and then of course Sunfire, Robe, and hand wraps are some of the best items in the game. If it's only obtained if you're tailoring and only in the last raid of TBC, which is called Sunwell Plateau, or SWP. And also it's worth mentioning that you must be a tailor to use Netherweave nets, which are used by mini guilds on mini bosses, right? Or one Lady Vash. I'm pretty sure it'll be used on mini bosses in the future. It's just a list of this is just to showcase how powerful. Like I said, these are BiS items when they're live current too. So these are like, it's just so powerful to have those tailoring, you know. Some more professions is engineering. Destructible hollow goggles are kind of one of the main reasons why people go engineering. You can craft these goggles, which at current phase 2, are best in slot for all Warlocks outside of Fire Destro Warlocks. Engineering brings many other things to the table too, right? That justify its use over many other professions. The grenades and sappers are used by a large majority of serious raiders and serious guilds, including myself. We spam that on cooldown. Other engineering only items have niche uses as well, like rocket boots, gnomish cloaking, and parachute cloak, name a few. And the other one is enchanting. This is simply only used to enchant your wings. The go-to for many Warlocks just simply allows you to enchant your rings with 12 spell power, granting you a permanent 24 spell power. It's also worth mentioning that one of the best ways to get gold in TBC is by selling the materials that you get from disenchanting, which you need to be enchanting for. There are 4 boss encounters that you will need a Warlock tank to tank. This is not meant to be an in-depth guide to tanking them because we will have a video on each of the 4 bosses and how to tank them as the Warlock, but rather just some quick notes on them. Note, this is how much resistance gear we needed on overtuned servers. Leo There's the Blind. I needed 365 fire resistance, 285 from my gear, 70 from totem max range. Oh, Leo There's the Blind is the first one. This is in SSC. I needed 365 fire res. However, with current servers, I went 285 from my gear, 70 from totem repel aura. Max range, remove Blessing of Salve off yourself and spam Searing Pains. All the Warlocks meta you use can tank these. All the Warlock meta specs can tank with ease. Here is the link to the video. Just click that. You know. Capernian, Kel'Thas Advisor, and TK. No additional resistance gear needed. No spec changes. Just remove Blessing of Salvation, spam Searing Pain. Just make sure to ask for Searing Pain back afterwards. Illidan, you get to tank a phase for him for Shadow Demons. Need 365 Shadow Resistance, 225 from gear, 70 from Fellhunter, 70 from Totem or Pally Aura. Park your Fellhunter out of range of his blast. Remove Blessing of Salvation and get to spamming Searing Pain. Note, try to let your Fellhunter die. Twins. Because the damage she does is irresistible, this does not require fire resistance, rather just high amounts of HP, 18k plus. You must also make sure you do not have shadow resistance during this fight, as you must purposely take shadow to reset for your fire stacks. If you resist it, you might die. I have died, and you might. Tips: remove priest shadow prot and wear PvP gear. Next up, we got some Warlocks in raid. You might think, what do you do in raid if you're a Warlock? Well, if you're Affliction, you typically are the only Affliction in raid. There's typically only one in there. They're only brought for their Malediction, which is 3% more on Curse of Elements, and then Shadow Embrace, which reduces the physical damage done by 5%. That's pretty much all they're in there for. They do have very strong multi-cleave, very strong seeds, very strong multi-targeting, and all that too, though, okay? If your Affliction are multi-datting, which they should be. Your rotation looks like Curse, UA, if you're running UA, Corruption, Siphon Life, Immolate, Shadow Bolt. Immolate has an asterisk. Note about Immolate, typically always keep Immolate up unless you're having a lot of mana issues, okay, for Affliction. As for Demonology, you have Strong Cleave, best AoE out of the Warlock specs, super high single target on T4 and T5. And then lastly, you have to worry about pet management so it doesn't die to high damage melee mechanics, which is the biggest downside of Demo. Your rotation looks like Curse, Corruption, Immolate if not wearing a lot of Shadow gear, or if you have a Fire Mage, and then Shadow Bolt. Destruction and your roll. This is the simplest rotation, which pretty much spams one button or adds one dot and spams one button. This is the best single target in T6. You're very competitive in T5, and you have some occasional CC you have to do. Curse, Immolate. Your rotation looks like Curse, Immolate, Shadow Bolt, or Incinerate if you're Fire Destro. Your note about Immolate here: if Fire Destro, keep Immolate up full time. If Shadow Destro, only Immolate if you are spec'd into it. or Fire Mage. The builds. Starting with the Affliction build. The unstable Affliction build is more of a popular build at the start of TBC due to suppression giving you much needed hit and UA boosting your damage. However, by the time you reach T5, most, if not all, Warlocks will sacrifice Unstable Affliction for Ruin in the Destructive Tree, making your crits hit much harder. This is a mandatory talent, in my opinion, for Affliction Warlocks at this point in the game. On certain fights where the Imp won't be one-shot by AoE mechanics, perhaps with the help of a pre-shield, you can go 3 of 3 in Imp, and 2 in Imp Firebolt, making the Imp actually do respectable damage. Then drop Shadowburn, Intensity, Destructive Reach. This also requires an S-Priest to work efficiently to give your pet that mana back, but under these conditions, it helps bridge the gap with Destro even in T5 gear. Next up, Demonology. This is my standard Demonology build, pretty much using all the talents that make both you and your demons unstoppable. There are many variations of this Demonology build. Some choose to put points in Destructive Reach and Intensity instead of Imp Corruption and Demonic Resilience. However, that is not suggested since Demonic Resilience drastically keeps your Felguard alive, and a faster Corruption time also means more time for you to do other things. And also, you're not worried about the threat reduction here because your pet. You're not worried about the range. You're not worried. Especially as your gear improves, a potentially higher DPS build is to remove the point in Imp Corruption and Felguard and put it into Ruin. Kinky. The Succubus is squishier and does less DPS than the Felguard, but if you can keep her alive, it's the highest parsing spec out there because of abilities like this that gave you 10%, 5%, and then this and everything else. Destruction builds. Got a couple here for you guys. There are many variations of builds for Warlocks, but here I'll show you the 2 main ones as they are the best. I've linked another fun Destro build above, even though it's less meta. It's called Destro Nightfall. This is the first and probably most popular Destro build. One thing I do know for sure is that this is the most boring spec in the fucking game. This build consists of you putting up whatever curse you're assigned, crossing your fingers, and spamming Shadow Bolts with the hopes of seeing big crits and big numbers. This build also brings some slight survivability with Nether Protection and Soul Leech. This is the other Destruction build. This build covers both Shadow and Fire Destruction. With this build, you sacrifice Cataclysm, which is not saving you that much mana anyway. It's kind of a shit talent. And survivability from Nether Protection and Soul Leech, which kind of aren't needed all the time. And instead, you get Imp, Immolate, and Emberstorm, allowing you to keep Immolate up full time in your rotation and it doing respectable damage. The point in Conflag is a flex point, but suggested as on heavy movement fights, Conflag gets a lot of value, and also there's nowhere else to put this point, so it doesn't matter. The only difference from the other build that would add, the only difference from this and the other build is that you would add Immolate and keep it up in your rotation. Both builds are great and on par with each other. I would say on average, this build actually does a little bit more damage. However, the Cata build, one has a little bit higher of a ceiling based on RNG. Just whatever flavor you want to go with it. Fire Destro uses this build, taking ISB over Cataclysm, so that for trashes and bosses with significant AoE, you can sacrifice the Succubus instead and just be Shadow. Add-ons. Important ones. There are a few add-ons that can make your life easier if you intend to play a Warlock. While most are just quality of life add-ons, there's one that is absolutely mandatory, and that is a threat meter. I personally use Tiny Threat based off of details. That being said, I think details is important to help compare your damage compared to other locks to ensure that you are doing what needs to be done. Weak auras can carry Warlocks pretty hard in terms of rating, rotation, and most importantly, dot timers. I'm a firm believer that a clean UI is mandatory. I used Elf UI, but there are many others out there. Click this link to be taken to my YouTube video going over all my add-ons and UI, or click this link to taken to a folder containing the add-ons. You guys can't click this if you're watching the video, but both of these links will be immediately in the description, okay? And the videos are on my channel too. Here's some add-ons that can make your life easier if you choose. Atlas Loot, which is pretty cool. You can look at all the loot you'll never get. Necrosis, which I hate this add-on, but a lot of people like it. It's a Warlock quality of life add-on. DBM, which is mandatory in my opinion, yells at you to do mechanics. Damage meters, details or recount. Don't get recount, you fucking bum. Questy or Quest Helper or Zygors or Rested XP. Any questing add-on. I'm not going to tell you which one to get. Whatever one you want to get. Bagnon or Addy Bags. This is the best bag add-on in the world, I think. Do not be that fucking guy with the shitty bags, okay?
You're not that guy, pal. Trust me. You're not that guy. Okay. Okay? You?
Can't be that guy, okay? Next up, Auctioneer and TSM makes your auction house life way easier. And then Spell Replay, which is what people ask me all the time. It's that little box that comes up that tells you what spells I cast. And lastly is Item Rack, lets you easily swap out your gear and set up item racks or item gear swaps. Macros, guys. Last one. Very important here as our Orc Zug T5 kneels in front of us. Focus. This is a quick and easy way to set a focus target. We suggest doing this because it allows you to see the enemy cast bar when you otherwise would not be able to too far to see it. Mandatory. All right, this is a very good macro to pop all your cooldowns. You can, this just fluctuates. Ignore these. This fluctuates. It's just put, so what it does is it's very useful. This uses your trinkets and then your potion, right? So it'll use, icon and then your trinket, or you can put flame caps and you use icon, destruction, flame cap, or you can take destruction out and put mana potion, or use icon, mana potion, so on and so forth. You get it, right? I like to keep a macro for all my CDs with Destro pots in it and without it, because simply I don't want to always pop Destro pots. So I don't want to use it all the time, right? And sometimes I want to use mana potions, etc. If you're an orc, it is suggested that you add /cast Blood Fury. A couple other ones here for Hellstones, make your life easier. This macro simply just casts your soul well as says what rank you are if you're expecting to do it. Not mandatory, just kind of helpful when situating Hellstones as raid. This one is a macro that will use all your Hellstones, but in order, starting with your highest one. So it'll use your 2 of 2 rank and 2 inch cooldown, your 1 of 1, 0 1. Lastly, this is just a simple summon macro. Whenever you begin to summon anybody, it'll say who you are summoning in raid or party chat or whatever you have it set up to. Not mandatory, but helpful. So 2 people don't waste time summoning the same people. And lastly, some tips and tricks. There'll be a video soon on tips and tricks per raid, per boss. But for now, there's some overall tips and raiding. Tanks in the game in this early sometimes have threat issues. Specifically if your Shadowbolts crit right at the start, or if you're out gearing the tank. If you notice that you're usually pulling or getting too close to tanking threat, just start opening with Emo and Corruption. That slow opener usually allows the tank to gather some threat. When you get your DMF Trinket Crusade, use rank 1 Hellfire pre-pull to get your stacks to 10 so you start the fight max. Also use rank 1 Hellfire to keep it up during the encounter if you're too far away to the boss. This is going to completely depend on how that trinket works. More on that soon. Next one, wait for globals before popping your trinkets, Blood Fury, Destro pots, and so on. So your Shadow Priest can have Shadow Weaving full up on the boss. Never stop casting, even if you have to move a life tap first if you need mana. Otherwise, Shadow Burn can flag if spec, Agony off targets, or even Death Coil if you need some health. Just always be casting something. When seed spamming, occasionally swap targets to split your threat. Try to stack all your CDs, whether they're SP, critter, haste, buffs, trinkets, potions, and anything else you have. Stack and use it with lust. Unless, of course, you're wasting a CD by waiting. When in doubt, drain life it out. Don't be afraid to drain life if you're low on health. Sometimes the healers can't get to you. Yes, you lose out on some damage, but it's better than dying and hugging the floor. Soul Shatter is a very important spell for us and needed in order to properly DPS as a Warlock. This halves your threat on the boss and everything around it. It is important that you wait as long as you can as to reduce the most threat possible. It is a 1% chance to resist, even hit capped. So do not wait to use it to after you pull threat. Whether it's a trash mob or a boss, if it's going to die before your next Shadow Bolt, then Shadow Burn. Or can flag if you're spec'd. Stay in range of your totems. I cannot stress this enough. The totems are massive. 101 spell power, another totem is hit, crit, trimmer totem, etc. Even during hectic boss pulls, try to stay in range, okay? Well, guys, I did it. That's it. Thanks for watching. I love you. I hope you love me. Like, follow, subscribe for more content. And you know the Twitch is over there banging. Twitch TV / Crix Gaming. I would like to do some of these for every class. I don't know how I feel about that yet. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe in the comments, man. Let me know if you guys think I should add anything. Let me know. I want to know. I feel like I'm missing something. I feel like there's some information that needs to be said that like is going over my head because I'm so used to it. You know what I mean? So if you know, let me know. Also, let me know how this was, man. Share this to whoever you want. And if you made it this far and you're still watching, just know that I really love you because you're actually watching this to listen to what I'm talking about. And please follow me if you're not. And I love you. Peace.